Hello there, I'm Cyberax with Outlandishly Crafted, and today we're gonna be talking about something different than we have before. We're not talking about design or art. We're not talking about development and programming and making add-ons and all that stuff. Today we're gonna talk about Minecraft Marketplace. I get a lot of questions about Marketplace, and I'm gonna start right off the bat by saying I am not or is Outlandishly Crafted a partner of Minecraft Marketplace. I am a developer. My company is Outlandishly Crafted, and I work for partners. I do not want to be a partner. So let's start off right off the bat by saying, what is a partner to Minecraft Marketplace? Well, most of you already know if you're listening to this. Microsoft bought Minecraft from Mojang and merged it all together and made a marketplace where you can put your add-on in the marketplace, and we'll show it here, and you can sell it to all of those people in Bedrock Minecraft. That's everybody that plays mobile, that's in like 180 languages and billion devices, whatever. So that's Minecraft Marketplace. You can see it here. And this is what most people are doing to make their money right now. So most people in the development and game world for Minecraft are making their money and doing their jobs here, making content for the marketplace. Now, some people use MCPDL or MPedal, and that doesn't make them very much money, it seems. And some people in Java world use Patreon, and that might make you some money to keep going or as a hobby on the side or some of those other things. But most likely, it's very difficult to make a living and a livable wage and eat and be able to feed yourself from those funds. So typically what's going to happen is you get into Minecraft. Maybe it was a hobby. Maybe you had fun with your friends and wanted to do more, and you start learning more and start learning more, and then you think, I should become a partner. If I was just a partner, it would solve all my problems. And I would like to tell you that I don't necessarily think that's true, and I get a lot of questions about it. So here's a few things you should know about the marketplace. The marketplace originally was designed for 20 to 40 partners that were high-level partners and could produce content, and they were approved by Microsoft directly. And now, a few years later, we have, I don't know, 300 plus, 400 plus, a lot more than the marketplace was designed for. So a lot of times people will think, if I just build a brand, or I have a website, or I release something on MCPL, or I have a portfolio, I'll submit my partnership to Microsoft, and after a few months they'll approve me, and then I'll start making games. And I would like to tell you that that is false. That's 300 to 400 partners in the world. That's everywhere. That's all of those people that you see that have the huge followings and those huge studios and have all this staff. That's who you're trying to compete with. And what I hear is, if I just have a portfolio and a few add-ons, I'll get partnership. And I don't believe that's true. In my experience, Minecraft is looking for studios and people with a lot of followers and a lot of marketing ability to make profitable add-ons. So if you're coming in and you have a YouTube following of 50 and a Twitch following of 40, and you're going to apply to be a partner, I don't think that that's going to happen. And I don't want to shatter the glass ceiling or shatter your world for you, but I think they're looking for people that have millions of followers, maybe hundreds of thousands in some case. I think Dacon Black Rose maybe got a partnership. I know his map got released. I'm not sure if he actually got partnership from it. But I think that a lot of those lower in follower groups that are typically developers and they're not studios, they're people playing with their friends, they're not huge influencers. Microsoft is looking for influencers and studios that have the assets and resources to do um, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, not a few hundred or a few thousands of dollars. So let's talk about that right there. How do you get out there? Let's even say that you get a partnership. Somehow you have the studio, you get a partnership, you get your first map out there, and nobody downloads it. Nobody knows about it. Right now with 300 plus partners, you might have 25 to 100 packs release a week. So how with that much content coming out do you get seen? And I present this to a lot of people. A lot of people come to me and say, "Hey, will you build me this game?" And I'll say, "What is your budget for one?" And they'll say, "We don't have one." Or they'll say, "Oh, we could pay you 10% royalties or of profits." And I'll say, "No, that's not how this works. A developer gets an hourly rate, and then typically a developer also gets a percentage of profit royalty as well for their big brain and for all of the development work and for what this turns into." That's one of the ways that you keep a developer on your project and not burning out or don't lose them halfway through because it's such a complex, hard project or because you keep changing your mind, which is the most common thing. And so those are the ways that you do those things. So they'll come and say, "I don't have a budget." And maybe they say, "I have a budget. I have $5,000 or I have $30,000 and I want to build this map." And then I'll say, "What is your marketing budget and what is your marketing plan to make this map profitable?" And 99% of them say, "I don't have one." Now, name me a business in the world that can run without marketing. Because you're running a business here. I think a lot of people are thinking, they're just going to make a game for their friends and put on Marketplace. That's not how that works. There's costs involved. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of legal issues involved and a lot of risk involved. And so you have to have some funds and have resources and have a mechanism so that when you do release that pack that you just put 6 to 8 months or a year into building, you have some way to make it profitable. There are amazing maps in Marketplace that aren't profitable. Great quality content with high ratings, but nobody knows about it because there's too much content coming out every day, every week, for people to be able to see it all, and the Marketplace isn't designed to show them all of that stuff. If you look at something like Steam, they struggle with the same thing. There's so much indie content coming out. There's so much content that getting the quality content and getting in front of the customer what the customer wants to play is very difficult. And at some point, Marketplace will be redesigned, and I think that they'll solve those issues. But for right now, that those aren't solved, and you have to understand that you need to spend a good percentage of your budget on marketing to be profitable and to make profit. Now, you might put the pack out there and it might break even or it might bring in a few dollars so you can keep going, but that's not profit. That's just covering your bases to survive. That's not a healthy business model. So right there, that's a step. Say you get in, then you get your pack out there. You got a plan for marketing. So let's go back to the beginning. You can't get in. You've spent months waiting. I wouldn't do that. I would not apply to partnership and then just wait. I would join a team that's already has a partnership and already doing stuff if you want to be a new developer. If you're looking to get into the development world and you want to do Minecraft, get on a team that's already doing that stuff. Get in and see how they do it before you try to reinvent it and do it yourself. If you're an artist, get on a team. If you're a modeler, get on a team. If you want to do it on the side and yourself, that's fine, but there's a lot of risk and hardship that comes with that when you have a big project that needs 200 models done in 3 months and then there's 6 months of no work. So it's a better idea if you can find a solid team that has constant pipeline, constant workflow, constant stuff coming in, and move that way when you start out. Now, if you already know what you want to do, you have a good idea, you have a plan, and you feel like you can, execute it all the way through, then find a partner that's willing to launch the content for you. There are partners out there that will take a percentage. Maybe it's, I don't know, I've heard 3%. I'm sure it goes all the way up to infinity. But find that partner that likes the content style you're working with. That's important. And work with them to meet the marketplace standards that you have to meet to launch it. Don't just make something. If you go out there and make a war simulator, it's going to get denied because that's against the rules. If you go out there and you make a religious simulator, a religious game, that's against the rules, it's going to get denied. So work with your partner. Find that person that's willing to release the pack with you and help you out. You have to keep in mind that just because you go to the partner and you release a pack, the partner is responsible for the support of that pack for the life of the pack. There is a cost involved to being a partner. There is a cost involved to doing these things. You can't just demand or ask someone to do it for free. They have to pay staff to manage the numbers, to manage the sales, to manage the customer service, to manage the contracts. All of that costs things. So you go to them, they take 3%, they take 15%, they take 25%, whatever you can negotiate, and then you build the pack and you launch it through them in their studio. That is the best workflow because the risk is the least for everybody. You assume the most risk, you do the job, you get the biggest reward. Versus if you go work for a studio, you might only get 10% or 5%. They may take 90 or 95% to release it, but they'll also typically fund it. So they'll put the $30K down to build the pack and pay everybody up front, and then you'll come on the backside and do the work, and then you get a cut of that and get hourly along the way. Now, there's a lot of scummy partners out there. There's a lot of bad teams out there that will pay people dirt. They'll pay people in India pennies because they know those people are so desperate just for food and so desperate to survive that they'll just take advantage of whoever lets them. So it's important that you do your research. It's important that you meet the people and you get to know them and you know who you're working with. And it may be that you have to work with them to get to know them and figure out those aren't the teams you want to be working with. And you'll, over time, find the good teams that you like, that are respectful, that pay you a living wage, that give you, time off and actually help you, versus the teams that are just there to burn you out and are a factory design company. They're there to just shove people through like Amazon as fast as possible, put as much content on the marketplace as they can, and that's how they make money. The quality of the content doesn't necessarily matter as much as that there's content every week. So those are the things that you have to watch out when you're joining a team. And then if you're finding a partner to sell through, typically those things won't matter as much. What really matters then is that you have good contracts and agreements and documentation so that in 6 months they don't screw you and stop paying you your royalties, because they own that game. They're the partner. They launched it. Unless you have a contract showing that it's your game that you launched through them, you're probably going to get screwed overall in that process. So a few quick things. Quality matters. I think it's really important that you have quality, that you're getting ratings, but do keep in mind that perfectionism is the enemy of profitability. If you're going to spend an extra 3 months fixing and making the last 5% of your game perfect, and that's not a very good return on your time, versus putting out something that's at 95%. That extra 3 months could burn all your profit. So that's something to also keep in mind. You really want to put out a 5-star game, but in reality, you're typically going to be putting out a 4.8-star game. And keep in mind, this is without Microsoft's issues. When we launched Dragonfire Nations, even though we were certified for Switch and PlayStation 4, people couldn't download the game on Switch and play it, even though they had bought it. And Microsoft still is struggling to fix that months later. And so, even though we did everything right, we followed all the rules, we went through all the stuff, it tested fine, it's certified for those platforms, we still had issues, which then causes our ranks to drop and our ratings to drop, because those people, of course, are going to get a 1-star review, and it goes against us, not Microsoft, even though it's Microsoft's fault for happening. So those are things to keep in mind. Another thing on the support side, and this isn't going to be very well structured of a guide. I'm just going to run through these as I think about them. But another thing on the support side is keeping the pack running and bug free is 100% on you. Microsoft is not going to help at all. They're not going to do anything to. They're not going to do anything. Let's just put it that way. They might provide you a video showing you the failure, or something saying that, hey, when you do this, it's a repeatable problem. But that's it. They're not going to look at your documentation. They're not going to give you any advice. They're not going to look at the code. They don't care about any of that. They care about profit and not getting complaints. So it's up to you. If they come out with an update that breaks your pack, they don't care. It's all up to you. It's up to you to do pre-testing on those updates and those packs before they come out. It's up to you to have updates in the marketplace on those days the updates come out. It's up to you to do all of that. It's up to you to take customer complaints. So you need to be very aware that just because you make it and you release it doesn't mean you're done. It not at all. If anything, every update performance drops. And one of the updates caused your horse to disappear when you got off of it. You may not be able to fix it until they come out with an update months later or weeks later or years later. So you have to keep that in mind, that there's always that risk as well, that they may just break your pack out of nowhere. They may cause a problem. You may run into something because you're doing something abnormally, or you did it one way and now it's depreciated. So you also have to keep that in mind as far as budgeting and your plans. And when you build the add-on, you need to be very cautious about breaking those rules and going out to the extremes and making things too complicated, because it only takes one small thing and poof, it's broken. It's not going to work anymore. You're not profitable. You pull it off the marketplace. You get horrible reviews, and it will be very hard for you to sell a pack going forward in the future. So those are things to be very wary about right off the bat. So that's marketplace. A lot of people also ask about staffing, and I run a team, and how do I manage the hours of an artist? How do I make sure an artist isn't screwing me by inflating their hours? And what I try to get across to people is, you have a limited amount of time in a day, and you have to make the decision as a business person, as a project manager or a manager or a CEO, whatever your position is, where you're going to put your time. And I can guarantee you, if your time focus is in legalism and trying to nickel and dime artists and staff on their hours, the only outcome you can have is a negative one because your focus is negative. So let's do some math. Your project manager, you probably like some math. So here we go. So if I have an artist that overcharges me in a month for 4 hours, and I bill him, just let's do easy, $10 an hour. So that's $40 I lost that month. And I myself cost $100 an hour to pay and manage, or $20 an hour to pay and manage, and I spend 2 hours a month reading hours and looking at what they submitted and going through and having meetings with them. I've just broken even on time and money, but I have showed my artists and the people that work for me that I don't trust them, that I'm suspicious of them, that my focus is nickel and diming and making sure that, you know, they didn't round up on an hour. Or I could take that 2 hours and I could market and evangelize my add-on and sell more copies of it. I could take my time and I could do something positive with it, and I could make $1,000 in sales. Or I could take my time and I could read hour logs of artists. It's art. If it takes them an extra hour to do it, then let them. Empower them to do a better job, to put more time into it. If you treat your staff and your contractors like you don't trust them and that you're legalizing and you're at every minute, oh, you got to show me, record that so I can watch you do it, then they're never going to put more effort and time in. They're never going to put their own time in that they're not billing you. They're never going to learn extra techniques and extra skills to do a better job so that the quality is better. They're going to do the bare minimum, and then they're going to leave as fast as they can under your influence. But if you instead say, listen, we understand that some months you're going to put an extra 4 hours into stuff. That makes sense. Some months you're going to have problems with Blockbench and a feature's not going to work. Some months you're going to have other issues. Some months you're going to have COVID. That's what graceful, caring managers do. You take care of your staff and your contractors. You show them grace and give them room to do their thing. You don't put a clicker on them like Amazon and track how long it takes them to go to the bathroom. But yet that's 95% of the people that I talk to's focus. They think that if they could just nickel and dime their staff better and just cut that extra $40 a month out of that extra labor someone's screwing me for, I'll be profitable. And that has never worked in corporations or businesses. It only drags you down. It only means you lose your staff. It only means you burn out your staff. It only means you become the guy everybody hates to talk to. But instead, if you show up and you're evangelizing and you show up to those artists and you say, man, I've got this great idea for this, and you're on it and you're pushing forward and you're excited and you're moving and you're marketing and you're on top of the company, not shoved under the company, life changes. Your life changes. How you feel every day changes. People like you and want to be around you and want to work for you. So I plead with you, if you're a manager, stop abusing your contractors and your staff. Accountability is one thing, but it's your job to interview and to look at people's work records and to look at their history and to find honorable, honest people that have ethics and morals that you want to work with. And if they don't, then you don't work with them. You don't become a legalist and ruin their lives. So take a step back from that world if that's where you've become. If you've become I am making my artist time-lapse their work, and then I'm going to spend an hour watching all of those, I can guarantee you that hour would be spent and more profitable going out and marketing your product and doing a positive thing. So take some time and look at how you're managing that. I would much rather build in a $40 loss every month than I would wanting to pay a manager to oversee that garbage, because that's the waste. The artist needing more time is not the waste. The manager that's not doing a damn thing other than being that asshole is. So that's the guy you want to cut out. That's the guy you don't want to pay. You want as much freedom on your artist team as you can. They're not programmers. And on the development team, you need the same thing. The developers are having to work around a moving target. Mojang and Microsoft are changing the ground and the foundation all the time. Things constantly work and don't work. So if you're trying to hold them to, hey, you said 3 weeks to get this done, and it's 3.5 weeks, so what? That's how long it takes. It's your fault for setting expectations and thinking that this is a hard line. It's your fault for thinking that this just happens. It's development. It's called development for a reason. It's not magic. It takes going from step 0 to step 1 to step 2, and sometimes step 1 to 2 takes longer than step 0 to 1. And if you can't get that through your head, this is not the industry for you. This is not where you belong if you don't understand the developers are doing development. Now, you can set boundaries and say, look, we don't want you going out and doing experimental stuff, or, hey, only do experimental stuff on 5 hours a month when you're trying to develop other things. That's fine. But to say, I want you to figure out how to make this entity do this behavior and you have a day to do it, doesn't make sense. That's not how this works. So that's another big piece of how you're managing those teams, and a lot of those questions I get on how to do that. Now the next piece is, how do you pay those teams? How is that side of it? I believe that morally and ethically, you are responsible to pay your staff a living wage. You are responsible to pay people for what they do and not steal their time. That's a crime. You stealing their time is wrong. So when you ask them to do stuff on their own time, oh, you need to learn how to do that. You go do that. Don't bill me for that. That's not okay. When you ask them to learn a new program on their own time, that's not okay. You're the one profiting and benefiting from that. You need to pay for their continuing education. So if they're your staff and your people and you're asking them to do it, or your contractors, you need to empower them and fund them during those things. And then it's important that you understand what the living wage is and pay them that, so that you're not abusing people. And right now, a lot of people around the world that are artists and modelers are getting abused, in my opinion. One, because the artists and the modelers are young and they don't know how to price their own stuff and their time, and they'll underprice it to just try to get a job. They'll underprice it because they're worried about getting the job and then losing the job, which happens a lot. And I would like to say to you people out there that commit to an artist to do a job and then find a different artist that you want to do it and change, you are scum. The amount of people that I hear from that cry, or that it just destroys their life, or they can't feed their families that month because you committed to something, you said something, they started the work, and then you pulled the rug underneath their feet. That is wrong, and you are scum, if that's your business practices. And I would plead with you to leave the industry, please. We need a healthy industry. We need a healthy ecosystem where artists are not being burned out constantly by factory studios that pull people in, beat them to death, and then kick them out the other side a few weeks later, and then they're just burned out and leave the industry. Once again, if that's your business plan, and that's how you're profiting, mainly because you're not doing your marketing. This is how you find your profit because you don't understand you need to market your product. You're scum. That's not acceptable. It's not okay to abuse people in India for you to profit in the US. That's unacceptable. And you need to get your shit together because people see that. They see you doing it. You may think you're doing it in the privates of, oh, it's just between me and a contractor, but we all see it happening. And it makes us sick because we hear from those people in their desperation. We hear from those people when they lose those jobs that you committed to and pulled out from underneath them, and now they don't know what they're going to do to pay their rent this month. So I would plead with you to review your business practices. If you're the owner of the studio, to go review the practices of your staff below you, to review the project managers, to look at the contracts, to look at how you pay people, and to reassess if your business model works. And if your business model doesn't work without abusing people, please stop and leave the industry. Go somewhere else and build a business model that's profitable without abusing people. Please, because it's not helping us. We already have Microsoft taking an insane cut. We already have studios that do the least taking the most when the staff and the artists and the developers that do the most work make the least. They're just scraping by while the top is profiting and making insane amounts of money. So please take a moment and review your processes, review how you're paying people, review your contracts, review. If you're burning people out, something's wrong. That's a red flag. So that's on the CEO side. That's on the manager side, the project manager side. The rest of it really just comes down to there's some things you need to know. So here's some basic things that I built for developers and artists that I wish you would do from the developer side. So I'm sitting there making an add-on, and an artist gives me 20 models, and I spend the next week fixing and cleaning up those models because they didn't use lowercase names. Lowercase names matter. I have to call these bones in code from the add-on to do different things. If you name head with a capital H or a capital E and a lower h and some stupid stuff, it costs me time and money to go fix that. So it's important that you, as the artist and the modeler, name your bones correctly. You set up your bones in a hierarchy that makes sense. Bones are folders. For those that aren't familiar, bones and folders are the same things. So you set up these hierarchies so that they make sense. You add root bones so that there's a root there. You name the models and files so that they make sense, and you have versions so that if you send me version 0 and I say there's a problem with this and send it back to you, the next one you send me is version 1. So that I don't keep getting file after file from you that's the same name. And half the time, because people don't manage their file systems very well, I'll get the same model again because they didn't properly export the file or overwrite it. And then there's this battle of, is it fixed, is it not fixed, which is which version, which is which one. Version your files solves that. Model 001 goes with texture 001, so I can match them up. So if you change the model, then you change the texture, I can match up the versions of them together. Artists and modelers should add locator bones to everything from personas. Personas have bones in them. It's your responsibility to add the locator bones in the personas. So, leads, custom skin packs, you have to put the lead locator bone in there or it's not in there for the player, which means when the player uses a lead, it goes around their neck and looks really bad. If you make a dog or a cat or an entity that's going to have a lead attached to it and you don't put a lead on it, the lead might just float above them. It might float below them. It might be behind them. You need to put the locator, which is what the lead is. A lead is just a locator. Particles use locators as well. So if you have a dragon and it's going to shoot flame, or you have a dragon and it's going to have special particle effects, you put in the locator where those should be. You should also manage the glow and atomicity of your model. So if your model has glowing eyes, it's your job to put in the transparency for those eyes to glow under the emissive bone, under that material. So to do that, you need to test your entity in the game. Artists and modelers and animators need to take their models, put them in the game, and test them. So many models I get, the artist did not paint around the animations. So they did not run the animation to see what needed to be painted. It's just one of those mind-boggling things that if you don't run the animation, then how can you know what needs to be changed? This is a good example. If I don't move this arm up, then how do I know if this needs to be painted under the arm? And so that's what you'll get. You'll get people that will paint everything in the model except the arm. Even when they can come to here and they can see a whole bunch of unpainted boxes from the template hanging out, they'll just leave them. Instead of actually painting the whole model, they'll leave the templated boxes that they see. And you're like, but where are those boxes? What happens if those boxes become visible? What happens if somebody looks from the bottom up? And they won't have an answer. So that's a critical piece, that it's your job as the painter and modeler and animator to make sure that everything is painted and properly works in game, not just in Blockbench. Blockbench is way more graceful than the game is. Lots of things will work in Blockbench that won't work in the game, and this goes for Storm as well. So it's your job as a particle creator to test your particles in the game first before you sell them to someone. It's your job as a modeler, as a contractor, to test your stuff before you sell it. If you don't know how, there's lots of guides to do it, and once you set it up, it only takes copying it one file. Just export to that file and overwrite it, and you jump in the game and it's there, and you test it and you move on. So that's another big thing. Artists and modelers should add the locator bones themselves. Animations need to have animation and the entity name in them. Horrible amounts of time I get animations that don't have animation in the name, which means it can't be used in Minecraft until I go and add that. It has to have it. So I have to now open Blockbench, I have to go into Blockbench, and I have to edit what you did to make it work because you didn't test it in the game first. A lot of times the animation name will not reflect the entity being animated. It's your job to name these so that when I get an animation and I get a geo and I get a texture all separated, they make sense together and connect. And the only way they connect is through this name. Use a root bone. It's important that you have a root bone. A lot of times I get models without a root bone. It means if I want to do something across all my models, so I have 10 pets that you've made for me. I have a dog and I have a cat and I have a fox and I have a dragon, whatever. 10 pets. If I want to animate all of them and you didn't put a root bone in them, then I can't. I have to then go add that root bone and common bone names to each of them so that one animation works for them all. So that I don't have to make a custom animation. So say I'm going to do 10 tricks and I have 10 pets. Now I'd have to make 100 animations instead of just making 10 animations that apply across all 10 pets. So for one, your bone name should always use a standard and be the same. So left arm, it should always be that way. It shouldn't be left arm with the uppercase A today and left arm with a lowercase a tomorrow, because those are different bones. That if you did that in the cat and then the dog had uppercase, then I would have to go in and either edit the bones or create a separate animation for each of those. That's on you to do. So if you're going to create a pack of stuff, you need to create them all with similar naming standards. Next is make sure your model matches the correct version and flavor of Minecraft that you're using. Often, people will give me content we paid for and they'll give it to me in Java format. Or they'll give it to me in Bedrock Legacy. Or they'll give it to me with animations that are in experimental and can't even be used. So I had easily in the last project 50 different models that were using a setting in the animation that wasn't supported, and meant I had to go back and redo all of them and put in keyframe animations. It cost me probably 3 weeks of time, because the artist never tested their content in the game. The animator never tested it to see that it wouldn't work without experimental features. No duplicate identifiers. If you're going to make 10 dragons for someone, you cannot name them all dragon. The identifier in Blockbench is your job to set up. As a developer, I should never have to open Blockbench to do stuff for you. I should get a geo and a texture and an animation file, each for each model. I take those and I put them in my code and we go. I should never have to open up your geos and rename your model identifier because you don't understand what this field does or didn't take the time to learn why this is here and just put garbly-goop in here or leave it some default template name. It's your job to make sure this is correct and matches the model you're making. So, cats, dogs, add ABC, 1, 2, 3, purple, gray, anything. Do not duplicate. If you duplicate, they don't work. So, in JSON, file names don't matter that much in a lot of cases. So, if it's a JSON file, the model identifier inside the model is what matters. That's what's looked for. So if you take 2 geos and you rename the file name but use the same identifier inside the JSON, they will conflict with each other and cause you lots of problems. If you take one of those files and put it in a subfolder like backup, thinking that because it's not in the original folder, that should keep it to where there's not a duplicate now, that does not work. JSON does not care where the file is. The file format system is for your own brain and Minecraft standards. JSON doesn't care. The only time JSON cares where there's a file at and what its name is when it's art, like a JPEG or a texture file, something that's not JSON. So those always have the path in them. So if you go to your texture, your RP entity file, and you put in your texture, it has a path and it has a file name. That path and file name matter. But all of the rest of them, when you go in and you have an entity folder, and inside your entity folder you put your behavior JSON file, that behavior JSON file could go in a different folder. It doesn't care in most cases. There are some, back to its Minecraft standards, that they may scan when you submit to Marketplace that these files are in these folders. But that's not JSON requirement, that's a requirement of Minecraft Marketplace. So that's something to keep in mind. No identifiers that duplicate. Once again, test your models in the world. Verify there's no Z fighting. It's your job to take Z fighting out. You will not know if there's Z fighting if you do not test the model in the world. Add a README file to your packs that you're sending. Don't send packs in RAR, ACE, or Z7. Send them in zip. Zip is the standard. Z7 is free. Z7 can send them in zip. Send them in zip. It is frustrating to get 3 or 4 different standards of files, and I'm trying to manage them. I don't want to download a RAR or ACE program just for you. Zip is the standard. Use zip. Do not password protect your assets. Review, test, have a QA process, have someone else, if you can, look at your models and review them. Have your particles fired up. Make sure that all of those things are verified to be looking good. When you make a model, you paint a model, you animate a model, and then you ship a model, it's very difficult for you to see the bad. It's very difficult for you to see the things that don't make sense or that are wrong because you've been staring at it for too long. Get a second pair of eyes if you can. So those are my quick, not so quick, best top tips for making models for artists, for developers in some case have to do this, for all of these things to just bring some standards that you would expect in other industries. In other industries, you'd version your stuff. You'd make sure everything's included that needs to be included. You would test it. You'd make sure that you're following the naming procedures correctly. So those are some basic standards that I would encourage you to use for the back end of managing and sorting. Next, make sure that you do backups. Crash Plan Pro, which is code42.com, is $10 a month for unlimited backups with versioning. Make sure you back up all your packs. You can easily have Minecraft crash out of nowhere and corrupt your whole world and never get it back. You could easily have Minecraft corrupt your realm world and never get it back. You can easily have files corrupted. I've had Windows OS corrupted once where the game crashed in the middle of running a function, and from then on, regardless of what I did, uninstall Minecraft, reinstall Minecraft, I spent days on it, I could not get a function to work from then on. I had other people could make them work on their systems, but as soon as I put that on my system, it wouldn't work. I had to reinstall Windows to fix it. So you have to make sure that you have proper backups of your entire content folder, your behavior packs, your worlds, all of it. Make sure you're doing that regularly or you will lose stuff. You will have corruption. You will have crashes. There's no way around doing Minecraft development without having crashes. So I think we've gotten through most everything. If there's stuff I didn't cover or things that we've talked about together before that you would like me to cover, I've had a lot of these conversations with people in the community, with developers, artists, PMs, owners. If there's something I missed, please put in the comments. Please DM me and let me know, and I'll do another guide or I'll add it into this guide. I want to really try to make sure that we cover all these things. We give owners and people that want to be partners a place to start and a heads up and some amount of prepping and expectation setting for what they should expect. I do want to set an expectation right now. My last map, Dragonfire Nations, took 4 months to get through Minecraft review process. So we submit the map after doing all the work, and it was 4 months before we got approved to be put into the marketplace. So I want to set some expectation. Remember, we said the marketplace was built for 20 to 30 partners, but there's 300. That means everything at every stage is taking longer and in some cases just broken. So, and right away, again, I should have said at the beginning, this is my opinion. I'm not a partner. These are my opinions from what I've experienced and I've seen, and I've talked to other people and heard their pain and their experiences and their issues. So at this point in time, I would be very cautious about your time plans and your budgeting that we're going to make a map and launch it in 6 months and be profitable in 8 or 10 or whatever. I would be very cautious. I would try to do simpler maps to get them out if you're new, and understand if you make more complex maps that it will take a long, painful, stressful, long time for them to review the maps and come back to you. So keep that in mind. On the review side, let's talk about that really quick. Most of the time, they take it, they look at it, all they're going to do is play it. They're going to load it up, they're going to play your map, and if there's errors that pop up on the screen, they're going to tell you about it. If there's things that they think the player is going to struggle with knowing how to do, or it's too complex, or there needs more guides, then they're going to give you some info and hints and say, hey, this could make it better. But that's really it. When I first started, I was thinking they're going to look at my code. They're going to be, oh man, they're going to think this is really cool. That's not what's happening. They load up the game, they play the game. If the game works and you didn't violate any of their standard rules, then you go. If something doesn't work and there's a bug or problem, it's 100% up to you to fix. They are not giving you advice. They are not telling you how. They're not telling you anything other than this didn't work, or this error came up, or this is blocking us from going forward. You are the entire team. You are it. There isn't anyone else out there at Microsoft that's going to help you or care. If you need help, you got to get it from the community. So that's to try to set your expectation of that process. Now, maybe you get something simple through, or they're not busy and it goes through in 2 weeks. Maybe. I think our first map was reviewed in 2 or 3 weeks and worked great. It was during Christmas even. But the second map took 4 months. And it's really hard when you spend 6 to 8 months making something and then 4 months waiting for it to get reviewed, and then you got to go back and make a few minor changes after you haven't even been doing development on it for 4 months. It's an interesting thing. And keep in mind, during that 4 months, they released 4 updates that broke countless things. So you would also need to plan for a on launch day update most cases because they break stuff in the middle of it being reviewed. So those are other things that you have to plan for and think about, and that are gotchas that are going to kind of sneak up along the way. And one of those pieces is, if you're going to be profitable, then you have to have a pipeline. So you have to have a map being built, a map being reviewed, and a map being launched all at the same time. And then to make that map being made, you have to have all your assets being made. So you need to have a lead time of almost 3 months, saying assets are being made 3 months ahead of the map being ready to be developed, so the developer can get the assets. The map's being made, you get the developer the assets, the developer puts the assets in the game, the map makers put it all together, then you go into review. Once you go into review, you need to already have the assets ready for the developers to make the next map. But you're now putting down all of the money for 2 to 3 games before you've even seen if the first game was profitable or will even make it to marketplace, if it'll even be approved. So you need to be counting and planning on, if you want to have a profitable model, that there has to be a pipeline, and it's got to be full up of stuff, because you also then have that developer that doesn't have any work for 4 months now. How does Microsoft expect us to eat when it takes 4 months to get something into the marketplace to just start selling, and then another 2 or 3 months to get paid? So you could be out 14 months from when you start a project before you even get paid. So just giving you the realism. I don't want to say the tough love, but this is the grime and the dirtiness of what's happening and the actual reality of it. You come into it seeing all the stuff and everybody's making all this money and it's so wonderful, but you don't see that it's taking them 8 to 14 months of investment in time and energy and labor before they get paid, before it even launches. And now I hope you're starting to see why you pay that developer a royalty, because the artist can move on, but the developer can't. The developer can't move on until the game is pulled from the marketplace, because they're the ones that still have to do the updates all along the way. They're the ones that have to carry all of the programming and knowledge and information of how things were done and how they work with them for the life of that product, so that when you need to fix it or when bugs come up, they have that information and knowledge and information still to go do it. Because it's very difficult to have another developer come in and fix someone else's stuff. Game development is very customized to who made it. It could take that person 3 or 4 months to figure out how all these things work, especially if they're new or not educated. And if you lost your expert developer and you're bringing in someone new, most likely they're going to be undereducated and don't have the experience to be doing what they need to do. Most likely because you either burned out the developer or you're not paying them a royalty to keep them around. So I know a lot of you think, man, we can just pay hourly, it doesn't matter. It's because you haven't been through the process enough. You haven't done it enough and felt the pain of losing a developer. You can replace artists, you cannot replace developers. It's extremely difficult. If you have a developer using command blocks and you bring in a developer that uses behavior files, they aren't compatible in a lot of cases. So you have to keep that in mind. You're investing in that developer or programmer, whatever you're using, to make sure that they stick around the entire project all the way to the end, to make sure that this entire thing finishes, and then they stick around for the rest of the life of the product being sold. That's a good developer. That's a good team. That's a good partnership. So that's what you're looking for. So I hope that this kind of brings all in. I know it's an hour of me talking to an empty screen, but I hope this brings all of this in together to help you understand what marketplace is today versus what it was, and probably what your opinion is of it is from the past, not what it is now. It helps you understand where you're going. Really quick, let's talk about what on marketplace you can do. So you have worlds, and you have texture packs, and you have skins, and you have personas. A lot of questions about personas come up. Personas are only allowed to be done by approved partners that are on the persona team or have access to it, and that's under NDA. So you can't be giving those tools out or passing that stuff around or even talking about a lot of it. So that's personas. Not everybody can do personas. Skins, you can do skin packs, but they're not very profitable in my opinion. They can make profit over a long period, but most of the time you're violating someone else's IP to make those skins, and that is a crime. That is wrong. And say I put a skin pack out of the Backstreet Boys and I make $10,000 on it. But a year later they find out and they sue me. The penalty in the United States for violating copyright or for using someone else's likeness is $250 per incident and up to 1 year in prison. Not only did you violate copyright and their IP, but you also violated the terms of service in your partner agreement with Microsoft by using illegal stolen content from someone else. So now you're looking at not only being sued by Microsoft because you put them at liability, but you're also being looked at being sued by the Backstreet Boys because you stole and violated their rights. You also, it's per incident. So it's per Backstreet Boy. It's per skin you sold. That's a crime. So the $10,000 you made versus the 2 or 3 million that you could lose in fines and fees and legal action and lawsuits isn't worth it. And if you think it is worth it, you are scum. Please leave the industry. That's not what we want. We do not want stolen content and other people's IPs that you don't have rights to put in the game. And there's plenty of room for free expression, but you're selling content as a business. This is not personal use. This is not something that's free use. This is not something that you modified a little and it's yours now. So that's a huge issue that you need to be aware of. Let's talk about texture packs really quick because this comes up a lot. You will not understand how much work a texture pack takes until you try to place every entity and every block and every item that you're required to retexture for a texture pack. You have to do every single one of them, all the items, everything, until you try to place them in the world. So if you think that you can make a texture pack and retexture everything in the game, then start with just simply placing every block and every entity and every item in an item holder and see how long it takes you to just place them. Not edit them, not create seamless textures, not test them, not create new particles, not go through and do all the items and set it all up and do all the programming and do all of that. Just place them in the world and see how many items there really are. Because I can guarantee you, you don't understand how much there is in Minecraft. The last update, it added 300 or some new textures that you would have to do. So you then have to update your pack to keep up with all of the new stuff coming out. So not only did you have to do everything in the beginning, but now every month or two you're going to have another 300 plus textures to do for blocks. Now, if you're going to add block variants as well, so you're going to have 5 different textures for grass and they mix together, now you're talking about 3,000 textures per update. So I hear a lot, I'm going to make a texture pack, and then I don't see a lot of texture packs actually come out. So I highly suggest before you jump in and you say, I'm going to retexture everything in the game, that you take the time and do some simple math. I don't know how many items there are in the game, but I'm going to say it's a lot. Say there are 10,000, which is probably, I don't know, maybe that's high, maybe that's low. If it just took you 1 hour per item, which is probably low, that's 10,000 hours. So you need to think about, at 8 hours a day, it's going to take me 800, let's see, 1,000 days? So in 3 or 4 years, you'll get that texture pack done, except Minecraft's releasing new content faster than you're actually texturing blocks. So there just needs to be some logic and math put to that. Now, if you have a team of 20, then hey, maybe that makes sense for you. But then you still have to pay them. You still have to put all that work in and then get into the marketplace and then hope it actually is profitable when it's just a texture pack and there's no world, there's no entities, you're not telling a story or not playing a game. So that's the next piece of that. So we're at 1 hour 6 minutes. I am CyberAx with Outlandishly Crafted. Once again, disclaimer, I'm not a partner. I am a developer. I develop for other people. I do also do art and animations and all that. Kind of as a developer, you have to do everything because people won't do it themselves. So you have to clean it up for them to make it work in the game and make it look good. So that's me. If you would like some more help or you have more questions or you'd like to disagree with me or you think I'm completely off base or you've had a different experience, put it in the comments. Check out if you need support, Bedrock, Discord, Blockbench, Add-on Discord, Bridge Discord. If there's anything else you want, if you'd like to support me, hey, check out Buy My Game, Dragonfire Bedrock Edition, Dragonfire 2 Nations. That always helps me out. Or you could always throw me a tip. Hey, I'd take money. I could always use an extra meal today. If you have anything else, let me know. If there's other guides you'd like to see, I'll put them in the comments or hit me up. Check out my website at www.outlandishlycrafted.com. And again, I'm CyberAx, and thanks for listening to this guide on Minecraft Marketplace.